welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Usually, when we came up with the themes, we came up with all 10 of them, basically the headlines of what we spoke about. So when we went into the conversations, I kind of already knew what this is what is basically we're gonna say. So this one is special because
I threw a curveball.
yes, which I like, which is always exciting because it breaks the mold. So because of that, saying I think I woke up around 3 because I'm a couch person, and so I woke up at 3 and I grabbed my pen and my book, and I was jotting down like, okay, trying to sum up everything that we pretty much covered in all the previous ones, all the facts and the information that we mentioned, and so just splattering all of these things on paper. And the one question that came to me was, what are we doing? Because when I put it down, what every conversation came out with was, it's all over the mess. It's all over the place. Like it's a mess. Not to.
When you say what are we doing, what are
the industry?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like
okay,
the whole business thing. Because Angus threw a point about how corporate doesn't seem invested in the creatives. Sakulumano Ayanda mentioned about how we don't have an agenda and we take this thing acting for granted, and it's like a hobby thing. We spoke about Sakulumane Saga. They mentioned about how the industry is just playing its own rules and and all of that. So when I put these things down, it was haphazard. You know. So I want to get your take on it. And like, is it? I'm not saying you can read my mind, but is it as bad as it seems, or is it just kind of like part of the package?
It's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah.
Sure. Where do you even start? With all the things that you've said, I think maybe let me start with something that's kind of hit me when you said it.
Yeah.
And that was that corporate isn't invested in creatives.
Yeah.
That comment. I think creatives don't think like corporate.
Sure.
And I think that's the flip side of that. Maybe corporate isn't invested in creatives because maybe creatives don't know how to add value to corporates. Corporates are business.
Yeah.
It's business, and it's about bottom line, and it's about making money. Every once in a while, to tick the boxes, it's also about social investment. But corporate is about making money. And I think that South Africa is a place that is full of opportunity to make money with creatives and to use the skills and the talent of creatives to make money. So that's the first thing. The first thing is that I think that creatives are not thinking in the same way that corporates are thinking, or getting into their minds and seeing how they can add value to them.
Yeah.
But the second thing is that we don't also then, as the industry and as creators, take on the role of defining the messages and defining the agenda. So that's number 2. And we could run a risk of understanding what corporate needs and playing into what corporate needs, and then it's kind of like we're back at square one because now we're playing to the tune of corporates, and then now we're just giving them what they want. So there's got to be a balance that we've got to find between, one, how do we give value to corporates, but how do we define the agenda of what we create? So I'll make an example of this conversation.
Yeah.
How do you make these conversations attractive to corporates? how does a brand get involved with this conversation in a way that adds value to them? You've defined the agenda. It's our agenda, it's your agenda, but there's a value add that I can find for a brand in this whole agenda and in this whole conversation. And most of the time, value add is really just about numbers and audience.
Yeah.
If you can get the right audience, if you can build the right audience, and give corporate the numbers and the people that are valuable to them and to their brands, then you've got to start. That is a start, and that is a way to start getting corporates interested.
Yeah.
Right now, the numbers are held by broadcasters, but that's because the industry and creators haven't looked at ways of starting to own the audience. Creatives know the audience. They are the audience too.
Yeah.
And so once you start creating your own audiences, once we own audiences, once we create audiences, then we've got some sort of leverage, you know, and then we've got some sort of value to give to corporates, and we can get corporates' attention. Right now, why would a corporate be interested in you as a creative when all you do is go and act somewhere, and you have no ownership in that? You go and act somewhere, and sure, you have your followers, and maybe they'll take an interest in you because you have a certain number of followers, and maybe then you can endorse their brand. But at the same time, that's not your agenda still.
Right. Yeah.
Because the biggest thing is the agenda. The biggest thing is that creatives have to have their own agenda. The industry has to create their own agenda, and they have to be able to rope corporate into their agenda, you know, and to be able to give value to corporates based on their agenda. And that, I think, is at the heart of all the mess that you talk about.
Yeah.
The mess that you talk about is because we haven't found a way to own the agenda. We haven't found a way to drive our own agendas. And that's the thing. We are playing into the agendas of other people, and we are enriching the agendas of others. And I think that's the crux of it.
Yeah. We had with Phil, the last conversation we had, he put a thought out, and he said, let's imagine if all of the actors from the big shows would just tools down for a week, right? In order to kind of shape this thing and move the conversation and push the envelope. And the immediate thought that came into mind was, there's always that one actor though that's willing to take the jobs that everyone is going to refuse. And that I'm saying it because I'm reminded of it by what you're saying, that we don't have an agenda as creatives.
Yeah.
I mean, that division in its own, the fact that there are some people that are willing to say, okay, it's not okay, but I'm going to take the gig because I need the check. That is a statement to, we're not serious about it. So like where we are, to me, this is a personal view, it feels like corporate is there. It's this big monster that's exploiting and molesting the creatives and sucking all of the juice that they can in order for their own agenda, like we're saying. And the creatives, the people with the actual power, the people, as you said, we are the audience, we have direct contact with the audience. We're sitting there like, okay, tell us what to do, and just tell us where we go, we'll go, and then you give us the chump change. So it feels like there's that division where creatives are working for corporate. Whereas I kind of think it should be the other way around.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Corporate serves creative. Exactly. And they move to the sound of our drums.
Yeah.
But now it just feels like we're the ones begging for jobs, and we're the ones that's saying, okay, you have everything, so you tell us what to do and dictate, when they don't even know the audience. They don't know the audience. They're not connected.
It's actually about disrupting.
Yeah.
It's about disrupting the status quo. It's about disrupting the way things have always been done. We can't have this whole victim mentality of, oh my gosh, they won't give me work. Oh my gosh, they're not paying me what I want. And, that's a reality, absolutely, that we've got to deal with. But at the same time, we also just have to start taking ownership. And we actually just have to disrupt the system. The issue is the system.
Yeah.
The problem is the system. And so if you're still playing within the system, we can all tools down, and maybe they'll concede a little bit, and but a lot of the fundamental things, I think the whole tools down, let's fight for this. I think that is all symptoms of a bigger problem. So it's all you're doing is you're just putting a plaster on top of a wound and not treating the wound to full healing, really.
Yeah.
Because actually the real issue is that there isn't ownership. There isn't ownership. And so you've got to disrupt.
Yeah.
This is disruption. This is disruption.
Yeah.
You've got to disrupt. You can't wait for an RFP to come out and then the SABC wants proposals, or wait for and pitch your whole life. Just make it.
Yeah.
Just make it. You've got to disrupt. And if you're making stuff that people want to see, and if you're having conversations that people want to have, and if you're creating characters that people relate to, and if you're telling stories that people relate with, then you're onto something. I mean, you just have to look at Nollywood.
They always come up in every conversation.
They have to, because they are the second largest contributor to GDP in Nigeria.
Yeah, wow.
They're the second largest contributor to GDP in Nigeria. They've got to come up because they didn't wait. In fact, maybe we got spoiled in South Africa. Because there's broadcasters, because there's this, there's that, and we can wait for the role to come up, and we can wait for the story to be told, and I can be a part of it, and we can wait for the opportunity to come to pitch. We can wait for that. In countries where the broadcasters aren't that big, there was no choice. Then there's no luxury, and you just have to create the content.
Yeah.
And we really need to start thinking differently. We really, really do. We have to disrupt the system.
I agree completely, especially for creatives. The issue of ownership is one that we honestly cannot afford to overlook and ignore, and it's such an important thing. And so many creatives, I've seen personally a handful, that don't necessarily understand it right now, the influence of having control of what you create. And I suppose you're right, we have been spoiled. It's easier now. Let me just go pitch to SABC and Mnet. I'll get a huge commission, and then I'll start production and da. But once you're in production and you're actually in the door, you kind of realize, wait, the steel is not as good as I thought it is, right? I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough freedom, and all of this. And at which point you can't back out because you've signed on the dotted line. So let's play in that field for a minute of owning our content and putting it out, because I know from personal experience as a creative, you create something, but now the issue is, where am I going to get the funds to put this thing out? Because you see everything, it's completely pelele, you've done your bit, but now it's about putting that vision into action and actually creating content. So what do we do? Where do we go? Like, what do we dabble with there? Because that's like one of the main things.
Let me tell you, I have a friend who had absolutely zero experience in the industry. None. Not from a business perspective, not from a production perspective, not as a creative, nothing.
Yeah.
She decided she was going to do a show. Broadcasters and brands told her there is no audience for a talk show in South Africa. You can't do a talk show in South Africa. It won't work. But, I mean, she had a very innovative and creative approach to her show. Ultimately, and actually quite quickly. Let me not say ultimately, because then maybe it sounds like it's something that she thought about for a year and pushed for a year. No, like after a month.
Yeah.
She was just like, actually, I'm just going to do this. So she created a show. I think in the beginning she created 3 full episodes of a 46-minute show.
The talk show?
Talk show.
Oh.
She created it. She made use of what she had. She made use of spaces. She didn't get a studio. She made use of a restaurant.
Oh.
She struck a deal with the restaurant. Please, can I use your restaurant? I mean, it's exposure for your restaurant. I want to shoot this thing. She shot the thing. Like I said, she had zero experience, zero training, zero.
Yeah.
She did, I think, about 3 pilot episodes. Then she took it to a broadcaster, a international broadcaster.
Yeah.
And she said, here's what I've done. And they said, okay, we like it. We will license it. And she got a license of just over $500,000, just close to $1 million, for it, which actually covered all her production costs on it.
Wow.
And it was a 10-episode show,
Yeah.
and it ran. And that's what she did. And now, because she owns it, it is now on one of the leading VOD platforms.
Yeah.
In South Africa. She is now talking to digital platforms in the US,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people in the African diaspora want to see that type of content. And once the license period is over with this broadcaster, she can license it to another broadcaster
Right.
and continue to make money off it. So first of all, she had creative license because it was her thing, firstly. And then secondly, she's actually made money from it, and she can make as much money as she wants from it. She can do whatever she likes with it,
Yeah.
quite frankly. It's
true.
hers. What I do know is that, I mean, the thing to do is not to create your whole thing. Not to create like a whole series without speaking to a broadcaster. You can
Yeah.
pilot a few just to make sure that it is something they'd like, and that you tweak here and there,
Yeah.
in terms of treatments and whatever that works for them, in the beginning. But that's what she did. So that is an example of ownership,
Yeah.
of taking ownership and of just doing your thing. And yes, you do have to invest upfront to some degree. You have to invest sweat.
Yeah.
And I mean, you might have to invest money here and there. I mean,
It's your project.
it's your project.
Yeah.
You own it, and you'll get the returns, you know. And this all happened within a year. So we're not talking
Wow.
like a long-term thing. And I think sometimes, I know this because I came into the industry as a business person who had been a business person for years. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes what happens in this industry is that because people have been in the industry all their lives, and it's all they know, and they've been trained a certain way, and they just know that this is how it works.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to break out of the mold and think any other way.
Yeah.
And I think then people don't realize that actually, as a production company, I'm just I'm an extension of the broadcaster. I'm kind of like a contractor.
Yeah.
Really. I'm
Yeah.
not an entrepreneur.
No.
I'm not a creative entrepreneur either. I'm just, you know,
do work for someone
I
else.
do work for someone else,
Yeah.
and they dictate a whole lot of stuff to me. At times, they even have access to my bank account to see how I'm using money on the project.
Yeah.
And so, essentially,
You-
that's
you-
not entrepreneurship.
You work for someone
You're
else.
contracted, you know. And I think that that kills creativity. I mean, there's still some space, but to a large degree, it kills creativity. But then the bigger thing for me is that I'm a social activist, and I'm a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
It kills agenda. It kills your space for agenda. You then can't drive your own agenda. Somebody is driving the agenda that you and using your creativity
Yeah.
for that. And so that's my take on ownership. My take on ownership is just do it. Get people around you.
Yeah.
Get family, get friends to invest in you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have family and friends that can't invest in you, you don't have family and friends.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a painful
So
truth.
that's
Painful
the
truth.
ownership thing. We're just so used to our stuff being owned that we can't even imagine a different reality. But also, here's
Yeah.
the problem. We're waiting for someone to make that happen for us. So we have the ownership thing and we're like, oh my gosh, we need ownership. Oh my gosh, we need ownership. We have to have ownership of our stuff. Yeah, we demand ownership. But then who's going to make that happen for you? You can't
Yeah.
expect people to use their money for you to own your stuff.
It does not. Yeah.
What?
I can't put more on the table if it belongs to you.
No, it's
From-
not fair. It's not
Yeah.
even fair on a broadcaster. You can't expect a broadcaster to spend money and then you own it. No.
Yeah.
This is business.
We are like that. Like on so many ways, I always avoid saying it. God, right?
I
It seems
too.
it's the truth. We are very spoiled in that
Yeah.
in that way where we don't want to invest in ourselves first and foremost, because that's essentially what it takes.
Yeah,
For you
it
to
is.
start anything,
Yeah,
to
you have to invest
step
in
one,
yourself.
like you have to be
Yeah.
behind it 100%.
Absolutely.
And then from that point, we're like, wait, maybe he's onto something, maybe she's onto, and then we follow suit.
Mm.
So my mind is taking me back to what Ayanda was saying. She was speaking more on the acting side, saying she doesn't think we actually understand what it is. We take it as like a side hobby, as just a joke. Even after much reflection on it, after she said it, it actually, there's a lot of truth in it. A lot of our creatives, a lot of us, because the industry is abstract in its way, our working hours, our environment, our workspace, whatever, is different from other industries, we kind of tend to forget, would say, this is still a business.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an actor,
Yeah.
but this is still a craft. This is still a
It's a
professional
craft.
space.
Yeah.
I own a production house,
Yeah.
but this is still a professional space. And so
Yeah.
I tend to think more along the lines of, babe, I could do whatever. I don't have a 9 to 5. I work
Yeah.
whenever I want to work, and and
Yeah.
forget what's it. This is business, though.
Yeah.
And when I'm presenting or pitching or meeting with partners, whatever, it's business. Like, they come from a position of,
Yeah.
this is business.
Yeah.
I care about the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like, what are you bringing to the table?
But you know, also there's another side to that.
Yeah.
When you don't take your craft seriously, and when you don't take it as a business, it actually opens up doors for exploitation.
Mm.
And that's why, and I'm sure this has come up in the previous conversations, there is exploitation.
Yeah, a lot of it.
And so that's another thing. And it's going to take people who are business-minded in the industry to start kind of crafting different normalities for the
Yeah.
industry. And I think that's where it comes back to agenda. The more we start to take things into our own hands, the more we start to be able to have conversations with corporates and be able to have budgets that make sense, then we can pay people better. You
Yeah.
know, and then people aren't exploited, and the more people take their craft more seriously, you can also respect them as a business person and as an executive in a television business. You can then take them seriously, and you can also then start to pay them accordingly. But more than anything, the issue of not being paid right also has to do with the budgets that production companies get. And so if we're able to own the agenda, if we're able to have conversations with corporate, if we're able to fund differently instead of being funded only by broadcasters, if we're able to get money and investment differently, then we are able to then start talking about better budgets, you know, and better money to be able to avoid this thing of exploitation.
Yeah.
Because, for as long as we're limited, we end up finding ourselves, I know that a lot of companies that find themselves exploiting people don't want to. It's not their intention.
Yeah.
But the system and the industry is such that people find themselves in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get, because you're the perfect person to ask, and because your position and what you do and what you're passionate about, I think a handful of people, one of perfect position. What options do creatives have? I mean, we've mentioned the example of your friend. She did her 3 pilot episodes. She took it to an international broadcaster, and they got piloted. What space? What's our playground, if there is one, that we go to, in order to where we can explore that and whether it's test the waters or put our content out or take it to the next level outside of, because now I'm at a point where I'm like, you know, I always, even when I'm speaking to other, you know, young up and coming whatever, I'm like, just forget broadcasters, because they'll kill you. Let's not even look at them, especially if it's people that have an open mind and that dare to think outside of the box and look on a global scale, because history and current affairs, it's shown us that our industry is not concerned about that. Our broadcasters don't care about making dope content. They just want to make money, and that's fine. Let them do them. So let's figure out how we can do it ourselves in the way that we know and we believe it should and can be done. So is there I'm not sure of the word to use, whether outlets or platforms or spaces or whatever.
I get you. That's where innovation comes in.
Yeah.
And that's where I think young creators have to really get innovative. They have to create the kind of thing, actually, at the heart of this though, even before we start talking about playgrounds, is content. If you have content that people want to see, then the job is half done.
Yeah.
Because then the second thing after that is about innovating. So the first thing is digital is a platform that is being used more and more in Africa, less in our country because of data issues. But that's going to change.
Very soon.
That's going to change really soon. And so you've got the option of digital, but even then you have to innovate. And you have to make sure that you find ways, understand search engine optimization and all those things, and find ways to draw your audience to you, to actually start looking at your content. But at the heart of it is the fact that, because you could innovate for days and find platforms, but if your content isn't great, like
wasted.
It's wasted. It's really wasted. And I think that the best content right now comes out of people who are really on the ground, who are actually living, who are where the majority of South Africans are. And the majority of South Africans are in townships and rural areas. And so if you're there, you know what the pulse is. You know what's at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
So it's about creating stuff. Don't try to create things for, I don't know, because you want it to look like this and sound like this. Create stuff that's real.
Yeah. That
people relate with. And then it will travel. So there's digital and all of that, and the beauty of digital is that your content can travel.
Yeah.
Beyond South Africa.
It's crazy.
And that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So there's digital platforms, but then there's also other innovative ways of doing things. We're sitting here right now. We're in a theater. You could screen your stuff. Create your audiences. Screen your stuff where there aren't options for people to watch things. When you start saying to a brand or a corporate, every week or every month, I screen short films, and I'm screening them, and I'm getting 500 people coming to watch. Don't you want to come on board? You can come and activate your brand, and I'll charge you this much.
Yeah.
And you're already making money. It's a different way of making money from your content, and it's right where the people are.
Yeah.
It's right where the people are. Most townships don't have cinemas. And even if they were, the conventional cinemas are too expensive for the ordinary South African. When 60% of South Africans live below the poverty line. I mean, we don't have money.
We're not going to.
But if you say it's $20 a pop, then maybe we're talking. And if you get a brand on board and say, bring your brand for people to try out, come brand this place and pay me this much, then you're starting to make money. Just different ways. The possibilities are endless, but everyone's out there trying to get this 8% or 6% of the broadcasting budget, and it's like, no, guys.
It's the illusion of it, though.
It's the illusion of it. You have got the power. You've got the audiences in your hands.
Yeah.
And it's about just starting to do things differently.
It really is. And the beautiful thing about the time that we're in is, even if you look at what is actually happening, not even theoretical, like this is factual. There are numbers. There are so many people now that are on social media that aren't particularly celebrities.
Yep.
But they have a massive and healthy following. And we can argue, I might not understand why, or you might not understand why, but they have their following.
Yep.
They have millions of people that follow their content. And it always reminds me of the same thing of now the audiences, which I think is beautiful, to be quite honest. We've moved away from that phase where we're now hard about celebrity and
Yeah.
We just want dope content.
We want dope content.
If you give us something that, like you said, we connect to,
what stuff that
I don't have to know you. I'll find out about you as I'm watching you and I'm exposed to your work.
And then we can stop complaining about, they keep showing us as Abatarati, they keep showing us as whatever. Who's they? Who's they? Make your own stuff that shows you the way you know yourself to be as a South African, the way you know your people to be. Show us that way. Show us stuff that's gonna excite people and actually make it quality.
Yeah.
Make it quality stuff. Just because It's not going to be in a conventional cinema. It doesn't mean you got to
It
lose
shouldn't
quality.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Because let's see if we can rock the boat. Because what happened, I wasn't supposed to say this, but whatever.
Here we are.
They'll arrest me. We put out an invite to some of the broadcasters to join the conversation. See if let's move this thing forward. And one of them came back to us and they said, okay, we got the invite. We saw the series. We watched the conversations. Yeah, but no, we can't be a part of it.
Okay.
Right. And instantly we were thinking, okay, you would at least give us a reason. Okay, no, it's not our type of scene, or da 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 da. But the conversation just ended like we just can't be a part of this.
Yeah.
And then we started, but okay, what is on there that would make someone in that position not want to be a part of? Because the whole thing was, we're trying to fix this. This is ours. This is us. And by us, I predominantly mean black people, because it affects us more than anyone. And now the broadcasters, whether SABC or Mnet and Mzansi Magic and so on and so forth, these are platforms that, for the most part, portray us. Right? This is our content. We're supposed to be seeing us on these screens, but we're not. Jobushilo, like a lot of us, we're from Elukshin. But when we see Amalukhin on screen, we're like, well,
that's not how it goes.
that's not exactly how we do it, right? So it raises the question, okay, the face is seemingly black, you say the right things, but the work isn't us, and it raises that question of if we're heading this thing up, then we should know more than anyone how to tell these stories, because we come from there. So it almost feels like, not almost feels like, it is like, but now it's starting to show that we really don't even own the industry, and these broadcasters that we run to, they just have faces that look like ours, so the facade is created with no, we have it, but the actual forces behind the curtains, we don't see them, we don't know them. And one thing we can say, based on what we've been given, is they're not us. Again, agenda, we can see the agenda that is being advanced using our replicas. like it's being fed to us. It looks like us. So, okay, no, black people did this, black people created this. But it makes no sense to say black people created this, because it's detrimental to us. It's like suicide.
I'm also going to rock the boat. I always rock the boat, so it's okay.
It's fine.
That's fine. So the issue, you spoke about this right at the beginning. The issue becomes the fact that we sell out.
Yeah.
That's the issue. We can sit here and have this conversation, and you and I can sit and decide, okay, this is how we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But if there isn't enough of us disrupting the system, it's a little bit harder. And I think, so that's the problem. I think the problem is that we then, I suppose because people have to eat, we then sell our souls, and we then will say, if the broadcaster turned around and said, we can't be part of this, but come over, create something that's similar, but you're going to have to, do it this way and cut this and cut that, and here's what's going to, and it's attractive, it's lucrative, it's money. You might turn around and say, okay, cool, I'm going. And the traction that this has created is now gone and is now lost, and we're back to square one. And I think that's another thing that we really have to talk about. I don't think creators, I don't think artists, I don't think the industry realizes how much of an influence we have on what our country looks like. I don't think we understand how much of an influence we have on what a black child thinks about themselves, and what a black child thinks about themselves within this country and who they are, about how we're portrayed. I don't think we understand the influence of that and how it is legacy, and how it impacts on generations and generations and generations, and how it contributes to our advancement as black people. I do not think we know. And so because we don't know how important the role of the creative industry is, of the entertainment industry is, we then sell our souls. And then just for, our short-term advancement. And that is the problem. I think it comes back to what you're saying about artists and creatives taking themselves seriously. We are determining what the black race is. Yeah. To a large extent. We are influencing what the black race is. And I don't think we know that.
Yeah.
I don't think we know that. And I think as soon as we start to realize that power, then maybe we will start to be united. We will start to realize that the importance of disrupting the industry and disrupting the system and disrupting how things are done not only gives us creative freedom and creative license, not only does it give us an opportunity to actually be more economically viable and sustainable, not only does it do that, because it's not about getting a once-off payment.
Nah,
it's, you're sustainable. Not only does it do that, but it also then gives us the opportunity to properly influence and shape who the black nation is and what the black child becomes and what we see. Even when we're gone, it becomes more than just about now and more than just about the money now. It's legacy.
Yeah.
It's legacy in every way, even with the money. It's legacy.
That's true. And isn't that one of the hardest things we are tasked with?
It is.
Of showing someone, because you can take someone in your position as well, or an actor, someone who's on screen and is watched by millions 5 times a week, to convince that person, Uguti, you need to see the power that you have.
Yeah.
Because what we see now is, because of the flack and the insults and the bad treatment that our creatives get, your soul kind of dies.
Yeah.
And you begin to question and doubt yourself. Like, I'm not that influential, because if I was, I'd probably be getting paid more,
Yeah.
And so people start questioning that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on the ground, you don't know the complications behind the scenes. Oh, I see Nobuntu on screen and she's amazing. Like, that is my role model, right? But Nobuntu doesn't even see that. She's like, I'm getting 7K per call, so like my influence is so that challenge of showing that person in that space would know you actually have that
so much influence.
Your voice is actually that.
So much of an influence.
I think that's one of the trickiest and hardest things,
Yeah.
and most heartbreaking as well, when you see people in those positions, because you have such great respect and admiration for them and their craft, the consistency. But when you look at them, you can see they don't see what you see.
No, they don't. And it's hard. It's hard because people have got to live.
Yeah.
And people end up taking roles that they don't agree with. But like you're saying, it's killed your soul.
Yeah.
And so, it's at a place where it's like, oh,
whatever.
I gotta make money.
It's deep. It's sad. It's sad. And I like the fact it goes back to the first conversation with Andy, and she said she personally advocates for artists again that are entrepreneurs and artists that think on the other side of the game, which is, don't talk to me about money, let's talk equity. Let's talk about what am I getting, because I can advance your product, but at the end of it, what do I really go home with? Because if you give me a whatever paycheck, 2 years down the line, I circle out, so it doesn't mean nothing.
It doesn't mean anything.
But let's talk me being a part of this. Like, what do I really, what do I own? And when I'm gone, what do my kids have from what I've worked for, and so on and so forth.
But I love that. I love that conversation. And Anne and I talk about that a lot, to say that we spoke earlier about, okay, so what's our playground, what's our space, how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
But we've got the resources, we are the resources.
Definitely.
So if I have a production and you as cast have equity in the production, and somebody's going to say, oh yeah, no, but then the the distributors won't take it. You know, it's so hard to get in with the distributors, it's so hard to get into the cinemas.
Yeah.
But then create your own route to market, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Create your own audiences and your own spaces. And that's how we have to start thinking. We have to start thinking about, okay, here's a film we want to do. Here's what it looks like. Let's do it, guys. Let's start. Okay, leads, let's give you equity in this. Let's find alternatives of screening this. Let's find ways of screening this. Let's find ways of bringing brands on board. Let's find ways of making money. And then we share real money.
Yeah.
For as long as the property exists.
Yeah.
For as long as that property actually exists, which is forever, we share the money in that. We really have to start thinking like that.
It's the only way we make it out of.
It is the only way we make it out. Because
Yeah.
we don't have 10 million.
No. So
to make a film.
we need to make do with what we make do with what we
We make do
have.
with what we have. We make do with what we have.
Let me.
And then
Okay.
we don't need to run the agendas of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just advance our own.
We advance our own.
That's a healthy way of. It's the best and the only way we do it. Let me ask you this. Phil was there and you spoke about a film that's coming out, an independent the filmmaker. He didn't go to our broadcasters, whatever. He got his own corporate to fund it.
Yeah.
But it was a German company that
Okay.
funded it, right? So this
Fantastic.
age-old story outside coming, throwing money in it and da-da-da-da-da. I wanna know what your take is on it. Because personally, I'm not a fan. I understand, but I'm not a fan for whatever reasons. But if we're speaking in a conversation and in a space about owning and finding alternative ways and not going to traditional media and just finding private investors and getting corporate on board, where do you stand on that? When you corporate, are you more of it's fine South African corporate or just corporate period?
Corporate period.
Yeah.
I have no issues with
Yeah.
where the money comes from. As long as the money does not take ownership of my property, as long as the money does not define the agenda and is merely there just to fund and get their return, then it's fine. Then it's fine. That is where I stand with that. My issue is ownership and creative license.
That's
it.
That's the key one. And I was scared when he said that. I was like, oh crap, please don't let it be what I do. Because for so many times the same thing has been done. We've been fed the same game plan. They'll come and we get your vision, we'll let you do your thing. But slowly and very smoothly, that agenda is being slipped into your project.
I think it's important to make sure that in your agreements and in your contracts, it's very clear. It's very clear that you have created. The terms have just got to be very clear in terms of how much influence you have in terms of the content and how much influence you have even in terms of distribution, the house of the distribution and what that looks like. I think that's very important to be negotiated and on paper up front. And, often with creatives, people get excited and don't really have those conversations and don't make sure that that's in black and white.
Yeah, as soon as they see the zeros.
The zeros on. And there is, for the fact that you have investors who aren't from this country, it just goes to show that there is so much potential.
Yeah.
There is so much potential. The audiences are there. The reason why we don't have the numbers at the cinemas, and we don't have the numbers at the cinemas. I've got the numbers. It's dismal.
Yeah.
It's because people can't afford the cinemas, and you've got to take the content to the people. You can't make people go to the content.
No.
And you've got to do it in a way that makes sense to them. You've got to do it in the way that's accessible to them. They're there.
Yeah.
The people are there. The audiences are there. Just have to make it accessible to them.
I was going to ask the question, but it's kind of answered now. I was going to ask you if as a business in South Africa, it's a good business. to that is being in television and film, when we take into account what the status quo is with the broadcasters, we take the numbers, we take all of that.
As it stands right now, in my opinion, it's not a good business.
Yeah.
It's only a good business if you're going to do it differently. It's a good business if you're going to use the access to broadcasters, and if you're going to use that to build your production muscle and all of that, and then they'll start doing the things that you want to do and innovating and doing things differently. It's okay to get your foot in the door in terms of being known and building muscle. But the truth is, from a sustainability point of view, it's not a good business. It's a business that you actually can't even get out of because, and that's the risk. Once you start working with broadcasters and using the commissioned model, it's very hard to get out of that. Once you're in it, you're just in.
You have to keep,
and you keep churning and you keep churning and you're just in. I know of a couple of production companies that have just simply stopped getting work from broadcasters, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise, because you now have to sit. I was speaking to a very well-known senior producer in this country, and she was saying they've just stopped giving me work. She's a black female, and she was like, so now I'm sitting and I need to sit with people like you, because I need to start thinking, okay, how do I do this differently if I'm not doing it with broadcasters? And I was like, you have the experience, 20 years of experience. You have the creative skill, and so you are in an opportune position. You just need to start thinking differently, and you need to see the opportunity. And I mean, we're spending time with her now, helping her to see the opportunity. But it's hard to get out. She'd still be in there.
It's
rat racing. And within conversation, she's saying, maybe it is time. And she's like, and I haven't in this made enough money to be sustainable as a business. And she's in her late 40s, early 50s. I haven't. And I have to just keep producing. And we have to find ways that make it a business that's sustainable, make it a business that can exist, create properties that can exist and continue to make money. Because as it stands and as it is right now, it's not sustainable. It's not a good model. It's not sustainable. Like I said to you, it's not entrepreneurial at all. People call themselves creative entrepreneurs, but you're not a creative entrepreneur.
Kind of not.
It's kind of not. It's not fully. It's not fully.
It is, and I mean,
it's not fully. Entrepreneurship means you are creating something that somebody wants. Right? And you're selling it to them. That's entrepreneurship. You create something that people want. You sell it, and you're able to make an income from it. You sell it. It's yours. You have the right to sell it. It's not really, in my books, entrepreneurship.
It is. By that definition, the commission model is in every way against that.
It is against
and
that.
It's
I got so offended one day when somebody wrote that on Facebook. Somebody wrote on Facebook that production companies are not entrepreneurs and they are actually just contractors to broadcasters. I got so mad. This was a couple of years ago. I was like, do you know? You were. But they were 100% right.
It's true.
They're 100%. If somebody is even going to determine how you spend your budget, your budget, how you spend your budget, then it's not. You're not an entrepreneur. Because you need to be able to move your monies around and figure out and determine your own bottom line. And someone else is determining a bottom line for you.
Nah, it isn't. And if you can spend 2 decades in the business and still not be able to walk out with something of your own, something's wrong. You were being played.
So creating properties, creating products that people want to consume, creating products that people want to buy. So if I'm now here and I've created a film and people are coming to watch it, then I have a product. I have people that are willing to spend money on it.
There's demand.
Hello, there's demand. There we are. I have determined distribution. I have created a distribution channel. That's entrepreneurial. That's creative entrepreneurship, and we really need to start thinking like that. We really need to start encouraging that.
We do, and the danger. I wasn't thinking completely on it. The red flag went up when Angus was sitting in that very chair and he was telling me about Isbaya. And he said Isbaya was initially supposed to be one season. But after season 1, it was so good that broadcasters wouldn't have not putting it again. And I was like, okay, so...
Yeah.
And
that happened.
And then, they had to keep going,
And it's good. It means you're creating stuff that people want to watch.
Like, wow, okay. But even that, yeah, it is. You're creating content. But what scared me is the fact that he or the production house didn't have the final say in that. Because the network had it. So they said, no, it's got to go on.
Yeah.
It's like, it's got to go on. I was like, oh, but... As the story said, that was the end of my story. Like, it was going to be a fire 2 seasons, and then I'm done. But like, go back. Like, I'll buy it. Imagine.
Keep it moving.
And then you just have to keep on, you're scrambling for pieces, which is something that I see a lot of now. You see, like, people are just scrambling and just putting things
and
together.
The reality is that audiences, sometimes we undermine audiences. Audiences can tell.
Intelligent.
Audiences can tell.
Yeah.
Audiences can tell. And I think that's another thing. That's another opportunity we have when we create our own content, to respect our audience.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to respect our audience and to just give them what's real, and give them quality, and give them art. That's the opportunity.
And that is the one thing that is definitely not there. And they always say you can see what you're missing once somebody actually shows it to you. So when we actually see a good production, then we're reminded, like, you know what I mean? Because now we're just stuck in this trance where everything's just so mediocre. We're kind of like, okay.
Yeah. It's a conveyor belt.
Yeah,
it's a production line.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's a good way to.
Yeah. Production line, but we have opportunity. And that's my thing.
Yeah.
That's if there's nothing else I've said today.
It's opportunity.
There's opportunity. The opportunity is there, and the ways are there, and we are the resources.
Yeah.
We have to get that.
We're all the resources we need if we're actually blunt with it. Essentially, we don't need broadcasters. They might make the job easy in some way, shape, or form. But if we get down to the crux of it, we really don't.
Yeah.
We can actually go further.
Can go further.
Yeah.
Can go further. And actually, it should be them knocking on our doors saying, "Oh, please, can we have that? Please, can we have that?"
For sure.
Sure.
And the world is seemingly doing that.
Yeah.
South Africa is again.
We're spoiled.
We're
spoiled. We got into a system, and it's a system that spoiled us, but it's a system that steals from us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can't see that.
Yeah.
Can't see that.
Steve.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've said what needs to be said. Okay.
Probably said more than.
Yeah.